From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased, very happy, very thrilled to have someone from Singapore. I think, Ameer, you are my second, to be frank, but it's been a long time. I felt like you are the first guest from Singapore. I get excited when I talk to founders, when I talk to operators, to builders, if they are especially in parts of the world which I am a big believer in. Like Singapore is one of them, Dubai is one of them, of course, and a lot of parts of Europe. So my audience know I don't like to steal the show from my guests, right? So this is why I'm gonna pass it to you, Ameer, to introduce yourself, tell us more about you, your journey, what you're currently up to. Tell us the story of Utu. I'm gonna give a hint to the audience. This is a sector we didn't touch much on still on the show. So Ameer gonna tell us about a lot of things. Again, I don't want to take much of the time. Ameer, thank you again for being here with me today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mehmet. Well, if you believe in Singapore, what I will say is you now have a friend here. So I'm expecting you to come and visit, and would love to show you the town, the city, and take you for a nice meal. So please come anytime. Hi to all listeners. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm so pleased and thrilled to have been invited on the show. I'm in the tourism space, a very interesting space from a technology perspective. And we specifically look at tax-free shopping. Now, my father is my co-founder, which makes for a very interesting relationship.
Nice.
Uh, my mother is never happy. My wife is never happy because work often follows us home, fortunately or unfortunately. But my father brings tremendous experience from his past life and his past career. If I were to put what Utu does in a nutshell today, if you look at countries worldwide that have tax-free shopping systems, so me as a tourist coming in, buying, say, a handbag downtown, I'm eligible to claim the tax. In some countries, it's called goods and services tax. In some countries, it's called VAT, value-added tax. Tourists are eligible to claim this back at the airport before they depart from the country. And the whole concept around tax-free shopping was to make countries more attractive to tourists to come and shop in. So if I were to say what is Utu do in a nutshell, today, about $5 billion leave country borders every single year in VAT refunds and are taken home by tourists. So I go shop downtown, I get a VAT refund at the airport. In the case of Dubai, those dirhams are in my pocket and I'm taking it back home and spending it on my kids' kindergarten fees or, my petrol for my car, etc. The question we asked ourselves is, why should that money ever leave the country? Why should it not be used in the final retail opportunity that any tourist is likely to see, which is either the airport, or if you're buying a bag downtown, why don't you use your VAT refund to buy the matching wallet? So we recycle VAT refund value that was initially going to leave the country to generate extra sales within the local ecosystem. And that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. As I mentioned earlier, my father is my co-founder. And he actually started his background in the duty-free sector, operating the perfumes concessions in Singapore Changi Airport, which is where we are based. We're a Singapore family, as you picked up earlier, Mehmet. After he finished his stint in duty-free, he started in the world of tax-free and built two of the major companies in the space. One is a company that some of your listeners might have experienced on your travels. It's a company called Global Blue, and they're the market leader in tax-free shopping services. He sold Global Blue and then bought a company called Premier Tax Free, building that over a period of 26 months and selling it again. Premier Tax Free, you'll know today as Planet, especially for those of you listeners living in the UAE, you might have recognized the Planet kiosks and operations at the airports like Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, etc. So I would say what I really do, Mehmet, is I bring my father's experience, and I guess I'm slightly younger than him, so I bring in sort of the energy and the vigor and verb, and I deliver his vision for what we call the third paradigm of travel retail, which is connecting city side shopping to airside shopping and creating a system where we ensure that value that was leaving the country is now spent within and enriching the local ecosystem. And that's sort of what we do.
That's great. And thank you, Amir, again for being here with me today. Now, you kind of mentioned what you do, Amir, and you
Yep.
mentioned, and of course, we chatted before, me and you gave me the whole story right behind it. You gonna give us, you give us, what you do, right? But there was, I'm sure, a aha moment, as they call it in the US, or maybe a compelling event that you said, you know what, you and your dad, like, enough is enough. There's something really going wrong here. We need
Yeah.
to start. I'm curious about, the early starts of this, how the concept, formed for you, that yeah, we can actually build a company out of it. Like, because what happens sometimes, I mean, and I wanted to, ignite my audience as well. Sometimes we see problems and we kind of we're not sure, yeah, maybe we can live with that. So there must be something that triggered you to say, like, no, there is something out of this, there is a business out of this, and of course there's benefit for whoever gonna use the platform also.
Sure. I think, Mehmet, you've touched on a very strong point. I think there's two parts to this question. There was a personal trigger and a professional trigger. And maybe I can address the personal one first. And what happened was I finished my undergraduate in the United States, and I was offered a job in private banking. But at the time, my father was diagnosed with cancer. And I said to myself, I want to come back home. It's really important to be with family. So I turned down that job, came back to Singapore. And my dad said, okay, so while I'm getting treatment, you need a job.
Right.
So I was given a job opportunity at Google, which was an exciting opportunity. But I decided that actually, my father's somebody who has so much experience. It would not be a good idea to not be able to learn from him. So I said to my dad, look, I want to work with you and I want to learn from all your experience. So I think that was a personal trigger which made me say, okay, look, this is somebody who knows the travel space really well. I love travel on a personal level, but my dad he's always brimming with these ideas, and I wanted to be able to take some of these ideas and distill them into a product that could create significant impact on people's lives, as he did with tax-free shopping when it first came, right? So there was that. On the professional side, I think my dad and I sat down and we said, look, tax-free shopping, the industry has kind of topped out in terms of growth. It's become a service that it's part of the tourist journey today. It's not something that needs to be taught. It is very much like a money changing service or any other administrative service that you go through on the touristic journey. So we said, okay, what else is there that we can build on top of this that doesn't interfere with the tax-free shopping system, but can actually deliver value to a whole number of people who are traveling. And if you look at, the worldwide market of travelers, you think about it, it's a pretty sizable chunk of people, whether you're shopping in
Right.
Dubai or Paris or Milan or Oslo, where have you. Can we deliver even more value to delight you on that touristic journey? So we really sat down and racked our brains over how we were going to do it. We went on a bit of a journey. I would say Utu today is in its fourth iteration. And I was telling somebody yesterday, I was telling a potential investor that we're kind of like a singer in a bar. You sing your first song, nobody kind of listens. Second song, maybe a bit more interest. Third song, maybe you get 50, 60 more people. But on your fourth song, all of a sudden you're Lady Gaga. And I'm not saying it because I don't want that to come across in the wrong way or that I'm thinking about myself bigger than I am. But it's just that I feel that after four iterations of hardship, navigating COVID, product market fit is very different pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. I think we finally found a product that has hit strong product market fit. And what we do today, in an example I'll tell you about in Italy, is we say, look, perhaps you bought a handbag downtown and you're getting €100 VAT refund. We work with the retailer at the airport, who's a partner of ours. And we say,
Mhm.
look, we're going to give you €120 instead. So we're going to convert the €100 VAT refund that you were going to take back home to, say, Dubai. And instead, I'm going to give you €120 to spend in the duty-free shop, right? So for the tourists, they're saying, wow, this is a much better deal than taking cash. Now, of course, if we give somebody a voucher of 120 or credit for 120, we're always trying to then drive an upspend over and above that value with all the delightful things you can buy in duty free. And we know that people buy very specific things in duty free, right? So you'd go to duty free for, perfumes, cosmetics, confectionery, sense of place items. So really try to capture this amount in the duty-free store. And we found such a strong product market fit that our partner today is going to be working to scale us out to many more airports that they operate in. We're looking at some things in your region, Mehmet, around the Middle East, some implementations over there, which I will tell you as the first person going to publicly ready to announce it. And we are looking at other products downtown as well, because don't forget, for us, it's not just about driving value at an airport, but it's also to say to downtown retailers, don't just sell the handbag, also sell the wallet by upsizing the tourist on the VAT refund that they're going to get at the airport. So really building out that vision of connecting city to airport retail. Sorry, I think I gave a very long answer.
No, 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 no,
Way
no, no,
my
no.
dad came about this, but essentially fourth era of Utu today.
No, 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 no. Again, Amir, I told you I like to listen to these stories because first, what I discovered is I like stories, right? But
Yeah.
it's not like just for the sake of stories, because in each story there is something that you can extract. Also, like it's something that you can ignite, people who listen to this. Now, help me here a little bit, Amir, because I'm not an expert in this domain,
Sure.
but I can imagine in such business where we are talking tax, right? And you have multi players in this and multi stakeholders, if the name should be like more accurate. So we
Mm-hmm.
have the shoppers, we have the participating stores, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have the government also as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to build something that can deal with all these stakeholders together, what kind first of relationships, of course, like customers, I'm not saying it's the easiest part, but it's the obvious part. But when it
Yeah.
comes to you know enrolling and onboarding governments and participating outlets, how that looks like in a business like what you're currently doing with U2.
That's a really, really good question, Mehmet. And I think you've identified the stakeholders really well. One more stakeholder which I'd add to that list. By the way, if you ever want a job, I think you know our business well enough. But the other stakeholder is synergy partners such as VAT refund operators and payment partners, which we can talk about too. But let's talk about the three big ones that you've spoken about. For the customer, what we realized after doing some market research in many airports is, when you get to an airport, you're in a tizzy, right? You're, oh my gosh, I need to do a customs check on my goods. I need to do tax free. I need to check in. I need to go through security. You're not in the mood to shop, right?
Right,
So the moment of truth of when the customer starts to interact with our product is the moment they're done with security and they step foot into the duty free store. Now they're saying, okay, I'm now in that headspace where I'm ready to shop.
right.
So we engage the tourist on the airport business, at the very least. On the airport business, we engage the tourist when they step into the duty free shop. If we look at the store, we have a very simple pitch to the store, which is to say this is a new stream of revenue that you were not capturing before. The tourist is claiming their VAT refund at the airport, and that money they're putting in their pocket, and they are walking through security, walking through your store, walking to the aircraft, and that money is in their pocket being taken back home. Let's find a way to work together to entice and incentivize the tourist to make sure that value is spent with you. So it's a pretty simple pitch and it resonates really, really well. It's a new way of thinking about what tax-free shopping could be and a potential evolution of the tax-free shopping industry, beyond what existing products there are. With the government side, again, government is not a commercial partner in the same way that the shop might be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at governments which are very strong in terms of looking at customer experience, that want to delight the customer, that really focus on the end-to-end customer journey, such as the great work being done in the UAE, where you are based, or say in a place like Turkey, Singapore, etc., governments start to become a very important stakeholder because, on one hand, yes, they will make more money through increased sales in the country. That's without a doubt. But I think people have moved away from a numbers game to saying that it's not just about numbers, it's about being able to add value to the tourist journey. And we're looking for solutions and innovations to be able to do that. So tax-free shopping was that innovation in the 90s, but it's not seen much of an evolution since then. So, governments, ministries of tourism start to become thought partners with us. We are talking to some touristic agencies in the Middle East and some of the Middle Eastern countries who are being very, very receptive to saying that, look, we want to go really, really big on creating the best possible customer experience, better than our neighbors or other countries in the world. Let's start looking for solutions outside and bring these innovations in, incubate them, and allow them to participate in the tourism industry and help them to scale out. So governments, I would say, are an accelerator. Shops are our commercial driver, and tourists are, at the end of the day, all of us together are trying to delight that end customer. Then there are what I call boosters and enhancers, right? So I can work independently with each of these agencies. I mean, I need the shop and I need the tourist. Government is an independent agency who's a good supporter. But then there's another booster, which is the VAT refund operators and payment partners,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so next week, we're going to be announcing on LinkedIn a very strong payment relationship with one of the world's largest mobile wallets, which you're going to hear about soon. And also VAT refund operators who we would love to work with and want to work with, because we're saying, look, you do the refund, right? Let's delight the customer using then our platform and transfer that refund into a higher value spending credit, right? And we're willing to give you something for it, right? You become a stakeholder of ours, you become a synergy partner, we'll give you something for it. So
Mm-hmm.
we see the VAT refund operators being a strong party on the airport side, but think about it on the downtown side, right? If I work with a fashion outlet and they were going to sell the tourist the handbag anyway, if my platform can give the tourists a reason and an incentive to recycle the refund value that was leaving the store into buying the matching wallet that goes with the handbag, I'm saying, hey, Mr. VAT refund operator, you get 2 transactions now because the tourist will still process their refund with you. Our platform has delighted them. The shop has sold 2 items instead of 1. And the government is happy because money is recycled in the local economy. We're not looking at a disruption story. We're saying, look, this is the pie, and we just want to make it bigger and bigger for everybody. It's a new paradigm of thinking about the tourist retail industry.
I mean, that's fantastic. And out of curiosity, because you mentioned about the Gulf countries, and I would say, especially, I'm not sure if I would put your business in the right category in the travel tech, um, or in something else. But the reason I'm mentioning travel tech is, in the recent years we started to see this kind of tailwind of governments encouraging, first of all, especially I'm talking about the Gulf countries, and you were here like a couple of weeks ago. um so there's a push for more tourists to come, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's in the UAE, and UAE, they are like pioneers in this. Dubai mainly, they've been doing this for now long, long, long time. And the rest of Gulf countries are following the path,
Mhm.
in different ways and shapes. So Qatar trying to be like the sports tourism, Saudi Arabia trying also to do this cultural tourism, and so on. And the reason I'm mentioning this, at the same time, these governments also are pushing, especially in the UAE and Saudi, towards everything digital, everything, paperless.
Yeah.
How much of that is a tailwind for your business model also as well?
Well, I like digital things because digital things means ease for the tourist And for stakeholders, it means data that can be parsed very easily through digital channels, right? So for me, it's music to my ears. What I will say is I want to laud the UAE, for example, for taking a leadership position in probably what is the most digital tax-free system worldwide. The question then is, how do we build on digital products that sit on top of that, such as products like ours, which can further enhance that tourist journey? Um, I think I think the GCC countries, especially with this digital push, the end consumer is going to be the beneficiary of it because, yes, they focus on different things, but in a way, in a very perhaps not so overt way, it does create a little bit of competition, right? Because if you see your neighbor doing something a little bit more digitally, right, with that marginal gain of digitization, you're going to say, hey, I want to take that next leap forward. And I think if you look at the GCC as a region, the advancement that you have seen regionally is something you have not seen in any other block worldwide. So I think it takes a couple of things. One is a strong belief in the future of technology. Two, I think you need strong leadership and governance, which I would say the GCC has with each of the member countries. And finally, you need a population that believes in what they're being told and follows that train of thought and says, this is the vision and I want to execute it, right? And I think, for example, Vision 2030 in Saudi has really proven that the whole country has gotten behind the vision and they're executing on it. And I've been going to Saudi, I've been maybe 6 times in the last 1 year. And every time I go back, you just see so much advancement at such a rapid pace. It's exciting, right? With the UAE, we saw that with the Expo and how the whole country got behind and really shifted the boundaries of what tourism could be, albeit in the most challenging time I think humanity has ever faced in the pandemic, right? You look at Qatar and the statement that they made at the World Cup. We heard things like it was the safest World Cup, one of the most enjoyable World Cups. The infrastructure development and what they were able to show the world architecturally was second to not to none. So, in a small way, competition has been really good for the GCC, and I only see this region getting more and more exciting as the years go by. And I hope that we can participate in that and help to advance some of these countries as well in this area that we've carved out for ourselves.
I mean, how do you envision a plan for onboarding more countries on this? I know it's a no-brainer because when you first explained to me also the fact that let's say I'm a tourist, right? I
Mhm,
go to Italy, right?
mhm.
And yeah, I'm happy that I don't have to go and stop by these machines in the airport to reclaim my VAT. I know, like, I have them already in my wallet, right? Through your solution, and then I can spend that, right, as instead, and I can go and spend in another way. My point is, when we think about scaling, and I know, like, it's not something easy to do,
Yeah.
but building and keeping, I would say, the same user experience, and I know, like, you have this UI UX experience also as well, to cater different, cultural needs, different maybe policies. How do you envision, your growth plan, for you two in the future?
That's a really, really good question. The one correction I'd make, Mehmet, is the tourist will still need to go through the tax-free process of that country.
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, companies like Global Blue, Planet, etc., are the VAT refund guys. We are the VAT voucher guys. So
okay.
two separate products playing in the same space. So we don't disrupt or get involved in their process because the tax-free process is really an export mechanism process. So we don't get involved in that. That's a government-run process defined by the country. We kind of take over after and use the value of the refund as a trigger to generate a further spend. But you've asked a really good question. If I were to look at it in the GCC perspective, I think first and foremost, our specialization is in the tax-free shopping ecosystem. So
Mhm.
we would need a country to have a tax-free shopping um, regime or a protocol. So countries like the UAE was the first in the region to start. Bahrain followed soon after, and Saudi launched their tax-free shopping scheme earlier this year. So we're in a really good position because we have three very, very strong GCC member states where we can start to look at our growth plans. We're always open. The moment Qatar, for example, wants to implement a tax-free shopping scheme, you bet your bottom dollar that we're going to be knocking on the door there because we think we can add tremendous value to that economy. So we have had, we're in final stages of agreements for our technology within Saudi, which we're going to tell you all about later this year. With the UAE, we actually have a running business. And when you ask about scaling, the UAE is a very, very unique market because being the first in the region for tax-free shopping, what was really interesting for us is we found a lot of openness and willingness to learn about new technologies and entrepreneurship in probably one of the most entrepreneurial commercial areas of tourist retail, which is in the Gold Souk.
Mm-hmm.
So we said to ourselves, look, the beachhead market, because look, new technologies sometimes are a little bit scary, right? Not every technology is like ChatGPT, where it's easy for people to onboard and understand. Sometimes things take a bit of time. So we said, look, if we were to look at scale, we want to go to firstly where transaction values are high, where there's a tremendous amount of tax-free shopping being done. And if my memory serves me correctly, over 1/3 of all VAT refunds done in the UAE come out of the Gold Souk.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have a running business in the Gold Souk today where one of our partners, Thungles, for example, Thungles today is enjoying a system where if they're about to sell the necklace, they use the VAT refund value that the tourist is going to get before they leave the UAE. They use that value to trigger a higher value credit to maybe push a pair of earrings that matches the necklace, right? What Thungles is also able to do is that let's say somebody has a VAT refund form earned elsewhere, a credit that has been generated by another store. Thungles is saying, bring me that credit, and I'll be happy to upsize that into a credit to spend with us. So they're getting, on one hand, a fresh sale from a tourist who may not have come to Thungles. And for tourists who are already in Thungles, they're able to sell more items. And we're seeing a huge amount of interest in the Gold Souk. So that's sort of our beachhead market. What I always believe is that, an entrepreneur such as myself or my UAE country manager, we need to be doing the hard yards to prove the data works, to prove the model works in the country. And now we know that the model's working really well. With just one merchant, we're going to be hopefully breaking our first profit in the UAE by the end of this
Great.
month. And that's a data point for me to then go to the right people in the tourism industry and say, look, we've proved it. Here's the data. Here's what we're able to drive in incremental sales. Why don't we start looking at this as something to truly delight every tourist who comes in? Would love to have more introductions to more retailers right here in the UAE. And the same for Saudi and the same for when we go to Bahrain.
Right. I like your approach of mastering, one market, which is, I would believe as you mentioned, it's like the most interesting, diverse, and one of the oldest market, because UAE was, if I'm not mistaken, I think I'm not, the first one country I mean, in the GCC to introduce the
Yes.
VAT. The rest followed, and they are always like looking for ways to enhance things. I was listening on the radio and I remember that I had the episode with you today. So 2 days ago, maybe I was driving to Abu Dhabi and they were mentioning also like they are trying also to simplify the process. I mean, for the kiosk, I think it was already announced before, but even the online purchases also as well. Like if you, let's say you come to the UAE and you buy something from the local Amazon or I don't know, like things like that. So they're trying also to include this somehow. So there is always a push for the better over there. Now, something which in what you do, Amir, and for some people it might look as a very traditional business, right? It's retail at the end of the day, right? So so
Mhm.
so we are talking about the retail business. What you did already with the concept of these vouchers is you know really smart, I would say, and it's a no-brainer for everyone. how much innovation you can still think of, especially everyone now would ask this question, oh, what are you doing with AI here, right? Or like what, like how you might leverage some cutting edge technologies in a retail business which like look classical or traditional. What's your answer to this, Amir, usually?
That's a great question. So what I will say is we look at AI as a tool. I don't pitch myself as an AI company because I don't think that's right. But we do use AI as a tool. So for example, in the case of Italy, the way our system works is very simple. You simply take a picture of your tax-free form using a
Hmm.
web app, and we use AI to understand that form and extract the VAT refund amount from the form. Right. So
Nice.
that's AI at work. Now, if you expand that beyond just looking at variables on a tax-free form, the question is, what other kinds of data that can we understand from that form? Right.
Mm.
And how can I then work with my partners to optimize putting the right products in front of the right people? So, for example, if you are going into a duty-free store, right? You, as Mehmet, have shopped in Italy, and perhaps you bought yourself a backpack from a luxury retailer, right? You used our downtown voucher to maybe buy a wallet, or the in-store credit to buy the wallet, and then maybe you bought a keychain from this luxury retailer. And by the time you come to the airport, I should know that this person, of course, we follow all GDPR and PDPA compliance. I should know that this person maybe is slightly more affluent. This is probably the categories that he would like to look at in this store. This is how much he's likely to spend. So, can I put the right items in front of you and get higher yield from the customer?
Mm.
So, I was speaking with a duty free operator, and they said to me, Amir, are the Chinese tourists going to come back? Because everything pre pandemic was focused around the Chinese customers, who are very special guests, of course, in the travel retail ecosystem, as are many of our guests from the GCC. And I said, the world is constantly changing, right? They may not come back in the same numbers as you had before the pandemic, right? Naturally, right? With the rise of India, etc. So then the question is, if they're not coming back in those numbers, how can you provide them, firstly, a delightful experience, always coming back to the delightful experience, but then as the retailer, using data to improve your yield per customer to achieve the same result as pre-pandemic or surpass it? So the way I look at AI um, in our industry is really as a tool to help us better understand data, connecting that from city side, building that bridge to air side, always going back to that concept because that's the vision we're trying to bring to life, and then being able to provide that data to our partners, to stakeholders such as government, to better understand how they can use that data to curate the tourist experience in that country. So that's really how I see AI in our space. The thing is, it's tough because we're in travel, we're in retail. It's still a very physical experience. As much as I love VR and looking at virtual reality products that come out, nothing beats standing in, the Grand Market in Istanbul, smelling the spices, hearing the sounds around you. You can't recreate that
No.
digitally. So then the question is, how do you take what is such a physical, experiential concept and sprinkle a little bit of technology on it to enhance it? That's the way I look at it.
Fantastic. And you just brought like something to my mind. Is like, I believe, and because of travel this is possible. And I'm not sure if someone would be listening, but I would say I'm sending greetings to everyone who works, in duty free mainly, and the organizations behind duty free. Sometimes they are government led organizations, like here in Dubai, for example. And the reason is they are like one of the spaces that let us remember what retail and the experience of retail is at its best. So people who visited Dubai would know, like, I've been always fascinated by the Dubai duty free. And I'm not associated, guys. Just I live in the UAE for the past 20 years. I traveled to a lot of countries, but it's really one of these delightful experiences because you feel yourself because you mentioned the spices and the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, and the other one is Istanbul Airport also as well, like the duty free there. So like these two places, and I'm biased, yes, because I'm half Turkish and I reside in the UAE, where really you feel this. I mean, this retail experience, and you know, Amir, to your point, I'm not. Upset, actually I would be upset if we try to digitize it in a way that doesn't make sense just for the sake we say like, yeah, we're bringing technology. I don't want to look at the spices in a VR set. I don't want to to touch, you know, the closest, and you know, and even, you know, the electronics devices is, you know, there's this, it's kind of maybe an old guy here nostalgia of going and, you know, touching the phone with your hands, checking the things. It's a different experience. I'm sure maybe, you know, people with time will figure out like travel is one of the thing that keep us, you know, like this connection to the physical world, which we should not lose it at all. um Another thing I want to ask you, Amir, and it's both business related and maybe also like general entrepreneurship question. You are a first mover in this industry, right? So um and of course you brought your dad's experience, your experience, you put it together to build the concept. uh and in the startup world, always I always hear this like, okay, how we can stay first, because at the end of the day we know like some other company one day they're gonna come up and become, try to do what you do, right? So what, how do you see the competition in general, right? And of course, like one day you might have competitors also as well. um because people sometimes they come to me and say, hey, like you know, if my biggest fear is once I start this business, a lot of people will copy me. So how do you how do you fight this thought, I would say?
Look, I think competition is inevitable, and as I said earlier, competition is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, I'm a sportsman, and you know, I've played sport my whole life, and competition pushes you to improve yourself. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think the question is, how do you respond to it, and do you
Hmm.
have the tenacity and psychology to look competition head in the face and say, look, I'm going to take you on, and I'm going to create a better version of myself. So for us, we are always looking around the industry to understand what are people doing. Is anybody looking in the space? You know, over the past few years, when we were sort of in the second and third iteration of YouTube before we ended up with the current products we have, you know, I met small companies that were looking to disrupt the tax-free shopping space, just for coffee, whether it was in Amsterdam or whether it was in London, small companies that were taking on the establishment. And it's good to have these discussions because you start to understand where people's minds are going, where they're thinking. Now, if somebody came and said, "Look, I'm starting a competitor to you two. I'm gonna go and take on you two head on and start to create a similar kind of product," that's fine. It's not a bad thing. But I would push my team to firstly think bigger. I would encourage everybody to be an entrepreneur. It's a term my wife actually taught me when she was doing her master's degree. To work in a company, but be entrepreneurial from the inside, and
Yes.
come up with ideas from within, because you have a good framework around you. You have a knowledge base, say from my dad, right? You have perhaps a more commercial, operational person like myself. So you have a framework and an audience that is ready to receive ideas because we ourselves are entrepreneurs. So that's really important.
That's you know, fantastic point of view, I would say, to think about the whole, you know, startup entrepreneurship concept. And you know, maybe I told you this, Amir, when we first spoke before this episode, I mean a couple of weeks ago. Like, people ask me like, do you consider yourself really an entrepreneur? I said like, look, I don't hide reality. I didn't, you know, established or started maybe a company in the sense of a startup company, but I'm a status quo basher. You know, like whenever I see something, I question it. I try to see how we can change things. So yeah, I consider myself an entrepreneur. Lucky enough that this podcast became, you know, my entrepreneurship space, if you want, where I'm talking to brilliant minds like you, also Amir, and y- and can see the passion for this. Like you love what you do. I can see it. Even you're in Singapore. I'm now in Dubai. Um, just as we are close to the end of this discussion with you, Amir. Uh, Final thoughts from your side. Where do you want to take you to, and where people can find out more?
Sure. So look, where do I want to take you to? For me, I want to be in every city worldwide that has a tax-free shopping scheme. I want to be able to add value to retailers downtown. I want to help you to increase your sales. If you're at the airport, I want to capture all this value that was leaving your airport and drive significant revenue for you. I want to work with governments to improve the touristic journey and what people can experience on their shopping trips. But ultimately, for me, the proof is really that delightful experience I can give to the tourist. And it takes all these stakeholders, VAT refund operators, payment operators, us, governments, shops. We need to all bring it together. We each have a part to play, but it's always about taking the tourism industry forward. Today, we are operational in Italy. As I said, we have a great business in the Gold Souk, and I love going there because, for me, the Gold Souk is a collection of entrepreneurs who have moved to the UAE,
Right.
made a life for themselves. So I love going and still doing sales pitches there. You'll find me there a couple of, well, not a couple, maybe like 3, 4 times a year. Um, and soon you're going to be seeing us in about 8 more countries over the next 9 months, where we're going to be launching. And I'm really, really excited for that. So, it's been 8 years, Mehmet. We're not a young sort of startup, but we've gone through the ringer. We've gone through the pandemic. You can't see it on the video now, but I have a lot more gray hair than I did a few years ago. It's been a really, really hard road, but you're absolutely right. I still wake up every single day believing in what I'm doing because I can see now light. I can see the fact that we have a huge blue ocean opportunity. It's about staying humble, grounded, and open to receiving criticism, but also open to seeing what innovations are out there and bringing our products to the whole world of tax-free shopping, duty-free retail worldwide, wherever tourists are shopping.
And the website is U2 dot
Dot global.
global. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make sure that I will put this. So for the listeners, go and check it because it's really game changing. Like when Amir explained me the first time the concept, I was like mind blown because I said, "How come no one else thought about it?" But you are a brilliant guy, Amir. Of course, with your father, and two generations together, they can create the impossible. I would say when it comes to business opportunities. I would like to thank you so much for this great discussion today and
Thank you.
for being part of this podcast journey also as well. And this is how I will end my episodes as usual. This is for the audience. If you just discovered us, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, give me a small favor, subscribe, share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming again and again, thank you for the support, for the loyalty, for pushing me to keep doing this. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the support also last month on the book launch also as well, From Nowhere to Next, available on Amazon. And I couldn't do this without you. And again, as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button. Share the show with your tech savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs.